This isn't about bad service. This is about the precise moment the simulation glitches at the checkout counter. We've collected the verbal anomalies, the logic-defying statements from employees who weren't just having a bad day. They were operating in a completely different dimension of reality. These are the stories that prove the line between incompetence and accidental genius is thinner than you think. 1. Ma'am, for this price, you could probably find a real cow that would carry your stuff for you. This was the actual response from an employee at a high-end department store after a customer had the audacity to ask if a $5,000 handbag was made of genuine leather. It's no longer about luxury goods. It's about hiring your own personal bovine assistant. 2. After finding a single hair in his pizza, a man called to complain. The employee, calm as a monk, asked, "Okay, but did you eat it?" That one sentence turned a minor issue into a full-blown psychological experiment. Suddenly, it wasn't about hygiene. It was about choices. Dark, cheesy choices. 3. A store manager trying to deny a return for a faulty lawnmower delivered his final verdict with the confidence of a seasoned theologian. "Sir, our policy doesn't cover acts of God." When the customer shot back, the engine literally exploded. The manager simply nodded, his point proven. Exactly. He works in mysterious ways. 4. Imagine trying to dispute a fraudulent charge on your credit card. You're stressed, you're angry, and then the bank representative on the other end of the line asks with complete sincerity, "Are you absolutely certain you didn't buy $400 worth of pogo sticks from a company in Delaware last Tuesday?" You have to wonder if this agent was projecting their own secret dreams onto your financial statement. 5. Confronted with an uncomfortable truth, a Made in China sticker on a White House snow globe, a souvenir shop cashier didn't flinch. When a tourist asked if the item was American-made, the employee looked them dead in the eye and declared, "The snow is local." You can't even be mad. You just have to admire the patriotism of that tiny imported blizzard. 6. A man at a movie theater concession stand asked if he could get extra butter on his popcorn. The teen behind the counter, without missing a beat, leaned in and said, "Sure, but it's emotional butter. It clings to your regrets." The man nodded in silent agreement, unsure whether to laugh or unpack his childhood trauma. 7. A woman frantically called tech support after spilling an entire cup of coffee on her brand new laptop. After a long, thoughtful pause, the agent unveiled a plan so brilliant, so outside the box, it could only have come from the Silicon Valley of bad ideas. His advice? Have you tried spilling rice on it? To soak up the coffee. 8. At a seaside restaurant, a family cautiously asked their waiter if the calamari was fresh. The waiter, a master of technical truths, beamed at them and replied, "It was fresh when it was frozen." He delivered the line not as a warning, but as a fun fact, as if he'd just solved a riddle that nobody asked. 9. When a man complained to his mobile provider about having consistently terrible reception at his home, the employee at the counter offered a solution that went far beyond a new SIM card. After looking at the phone with deep concern, he suggested, "Have you considered moving to a better spot? Like, permanently?" 10. The sheer irony of this one is almost poetic. A woman, completely defeated by her new smart thermostat, called the helpline for support. The employee listened to her tale of technological woe for 10 full minutes before finally surrendering on behalf of all modern innovation, advising, "Honestly, ma'am, sometimes it's just easier to put on a sweater." 11. A woman held up a 100% cotton shirt and asked, "Will this shrink?" The employee stared into space like he was remembering a lost love and murmured, "Everything shrinks, ma'am. Shirts, dreams, sons." Then he walked off like a man who's seen too many dryers. 12. A customer at a fast food joint politely pointed out that his burger was missing the pickles he'd asked for. The employee behind the counter leaned over, inspected the burger, and then looked the customer dead in the eye. "We're actually doing you a favor," he said with total conviction. "Those things are full of vinegar." 13. Getting your driver's license photo taken is already a miserable experience. One woman was trying her best to maintain a neutral expression, but the DMV employee wasn't satisfied. "No, more neutral," he instructed. "I need you to look like you have no thoughts, no feelings, and no hope for the future." Perfect. 14. A woman took her very old, very sick cat to the veterinarian. The vet tech, a cheerful young woman, looked at the cat's file and chirped, "Oh, he's 18 years old. Wow, he's definitely had a good run, hasn't he?" She said it with the same energy as someone congratulating a marathon runner at the finish line. 15. While wrestling with the display model of a complex Swedish bookshelf, a man asked a furniture store employee if it was difficult to assemble. The employee shrugged and said, "The instructions are basically just angry-looking cartoons, but it's a great test for any relationship. If you can build this together, you can survive anything." 16. At a grocery store butcher counter, a man asked for exactly 1 pound of ground beef. The butcher scooped a pile onto the scale, which read 1.2 pounds. He then stared at it for a solid 10 seconds before looking up and asking, "How attached are you to the concept of a pound?" 17. After a horror movie, a visibly shaken man told the teenage usher, "That was way too scary. I think I'm going to have nightmares." The usher just tore his ticket stub and replied, "Yeah, that's kind of the point. If you wanted not scary, you should have seen the one about the singing squirrels." 18. A woman asked the post office clerk to mark her box as fragile. He smiled, slapped the sticker on, and whispered, "We throw those ones harder. Gotta test if they're telling the truth." Honestly, you can't even be mad at that level of commitment to chaos. 19. During a test drive, a potential buyer asked the car salesman a straightforward question about the vehicle's fuel efficiency. The salesman, wearing a suit that was just a little too shiny, avoided the question entirely, instead delivering the line, "Sir, this isn't a car that runs on miles. This is a car that runs on smiles." 20. A woman buying allergy pills asked the pharmacist if they'd make her drowsy. He leaned in with a serious face and said, "Only if you're emotionally vulnerable. These pills can sense weakness." Then he slid the box across the counter like he was passing a secret weapon. 21. A guy signing up for a new gym membership asked the employee for a tour. The employee enthusiastically agreed, leading him to a massive room full of treadmills. "And this," he announced with a grand gesture, "is the room of broken dreams and New Year's resolutions. We mostly use it for coat storage after February." 22. A woman at a bakery pointed to a cake that looked a little wonky and asked if it was fresh. The employee smiled warmly and said, "Absolutely. It was born this morning, went through a minor identity crisis around noon, and is now embracing its asymmetry." Honestly, best cake backstory I've ever heard. 23. After his soup arrived lukewarm, a diner flagged down his waiter. "Excuse me, but this soup is cold," he said. The waiter came over, gently touched the side of the bowl, thought for a moment, and brightly suggested, "Maybe it's a gazpacho now. You know, like a surprise gazpacho." 24. A guest at a hotel called the front desk around midnight to ask for an extra pillow. The night auditor let out a long, weary sigh and explained, "Sir, if we start giving out extra pillows willy-nilly, the entire system could collapse. It's a delicate ecosystem." 25. While browsing a bookstore, a customer approached an employee who looked like he hadn't seen the sun in several years and asked, "Excuse me, where can I find books about happiness?" The employee pointed to a single empty space on a nearby shelf and said, "We had one, but someone bought it." 26. A guy at an arcade asked why none of the claw machines were working. The teenage staffer, without looking up from his phone, replied, "They stopped believing in themselves. Happens after too many failed grabs. We're trying motivational posters next." 27. At a natural history museum, a curious 10-year-old boy pointed to a massive T-Rex skeleton and asked the security guard, "What happened to him?" The guard, without breaking his stoic expression, leaned down and whispered, "He didn't listen." 28. When a woman at a bakery pointed out that the freshly baked croissant she'd just bought was hard as a rock, the employee behind the counter took it, inspected it, and said with a shrug, "It's not stale, it's just ambitious. It has aspirations of becoming a crouton." 29. A woman at a pet grooming salon brought in a very anxious chihuahua. She asked the employee if they had experience with nervous dogs. The groomer nodded solemnly and whispered, "Ma'am, I've looked into the eyes of a pug having an existential crisis. I've seen things. We'll be fine." 30. A man buying a bouquet of roses from a florist asked, "How long will these last?" The florist, a pragmatic woman with dirt under her nails, replied instantly, "Longer than the apology you're probably buying them for." 31. A guy looking at kayaks in a sporting goods store was approached by an eager young employee. "Pro tip," the employee offered, unprompted. "If you're worried about tipping over, just drill a few small holes in the bottom. That lets the water out just as fast as it comes in. It's just science." 32. A man in a fancy home decor store asked if a lamp came in different colors. The employee stared at the glowing orb for a long moment and replied, "It comes in whatever color your soul resonates with. Right now, I'm seeing beige confusion." That's one way to say no options. 33. A woman called a plumber because her garbage disposal was making weird noises. After a quick inspection, the plumber solemnly said, "It's haunted by the ghost of poorly chopped celery. We can exorcise it, but it'll cost extra." She nodded. She knew the celery had been a mistake. 34. A man wandered through a massive hardware store for 20 minutes before finally finding an employee. "Excuse me," the customer asked, "where do you keep the hammers?" The employee looked around, utterly bewildered, and confessed, "You know, I've always wondered that myself." 35. After a roller coaster came to an abrupt stop, a park employee walked along the track to reassure the nervous passengers. "Don't worry, folks," he announced over a megaphone. "This happens sometimes. The last group was only stuck up here for about an hour." 36. At a high-end art gallery, a woman asked if a splatter painting was hanging upside down. The attendant adjusted their glasses and said, "Orientation is a capitalist illusion. Art sees you the way it wants to." She bought it, obviously. No one wants to argue with a canvas that's judging you. 37. After being on hold for 45 minutes, a furious customer was finally transferred to a supervisor. When she complained about the wait time, the supervisor replied in a calm, soothing voice, "We see the hold time not as a delay, but as an opportunity for you to reflect." 38. A woman brought her goldfish to the pet store, saying it looked depressed. The employee examined it, then whispered, "He's going through an existential phase. He recently discovered he lives in a simulation. Maybe try a rounder tank, make the universe feel less confined." 39. In an art supply store, a student asked an employee where to find a canvas. The employee, who was covered in paint splatters, pointed vaguely and said, "They're over there. But are you sure you're ready for that kind of pressure? That canvas is so white. It's so full of potential. It's terrifying." 40. As a flight was experiencing severe turbulence, a nervous passenger asked a flight attendant if they should be worried. The flight attendant, who was calmly securing a coffee pot, replied with a smile, "Only if we start praying. As long as we're just swearing, you're fine." 41. When a man went to pick up his rental car, the agent cheerfully handed him the keys and said, "And this one has a fun little quirk. The horn goes off every time you make a right turn. It keeps things interesting for everyone on the road." 42. At the DMV, a man asked how to get a parking permit. The clerk handed him a pamphlet and said, "Step 1. Surrender your concept of time. Step 2. Embrace the eternal loop. Step 3. Good luck." The man never returned. Some say he's still in the waiting area. 43. A waiter, serving a steak that was clearly burnt to a crisp, presented it to the table with a flourish. "The chef has prepared for you the Icarus steak," he announced. "It's a bold reinterpretation that explores the tragedy of flying too close to the sun, or in this case, the broiler." 44. A person in a library accidentally let out a small sneeze. The librarian at the desk looked up over her glasses, glared, and said in a voice that could curdle milk, "If you're going to be spreading plagues, please take it to the biography section. Those people are already dead." 45. After trying on shoes that felt a little tight, the salesman didn't hesitate. "Of course they do," he said. "They don't trust you yet. Try talking to them. Tell them about your childhood." He walked away like that was completely normal. Maybe it was. 46. At an electronics repair shop, a man asked how long it would take to fix his broken phone. The technician glanced at it and said, "Well, it's not really broken. It's just taking a vow of silence. Sometimes technology needs space too." He then offered incense and walked away. 47. While looking at a specific brand of blender, a man flagged down an employee and asked, "I see this one is on a deep discount. Is it any good?" The employee picked up the box, looked at it with visible disgust, and said, "Honestly, it sounds like a helicopter in a garbage disposal and can't even get through a soft banana. We're just trying to get rid of them before they unionize." 48. A woman at a coffee shop noticed a fly doing laps in the milk pitcher on the counter and pointed it out to the barista. The barista calmly retrieved the pitcher, fished out the fly with a spoon, and said with a reassuring smile, "Don't worry, he's a backstroker. All the germs stay on the bottom." The confidence in his flawed understanding of physics was terrifying. 49. At a tire shop, a customer was quoted a price that seemed excessively high. When he questioned it, the manager leaned in and explained, "Sir, you're not just paying for the tires. You're paying for the stories these tires will tell one day. Think of it as an investment in future legends." 50. During a particularly boring company meeting, an intern was asked for his input on a new marketing strategy. He stared blankly for a moment, then replied with profound seriousness, "My soul is a tranquil forest, and your words are but the wind rustling the leaves." The entire room just stopped. 51. A customer brought in a broken blender and asked what happened. The repair guy plugged it in, listened carefully, and said, "It's processing trauma. Last smoothie was kale and pineapple. That combination breaks a soul." He offered therapy for both the blender and the owner. 52. When a man tried to check into a hotel, the clerk couldn't find his reservation. After several minutes of frantic typing, the clerk looked up, defeated, and said, "I can't find you anywhere in the system. Are you completely sure that you exist?" 53. A woman brought her malfunctioning tablet to a tech store's help desk. The technician took one look at it, held it up to his ear like a seashell, and announced, "I'm hearing a lot of digital sadness from this one. I recommend letting it watch some videos of kittens for a few hours. That usually cheers them up." 54. After a restaurant completely botched a customer's order, the manager came to the table to apologize. "I am so sorry," he said with a deep bow. "The kitchen is currently experiencing a moment of profound existential chaos. We thank you for being a part of this messy, beautiful journey." 55. A family tried to get a refund for their movie tickets because they said the film was terrible. The teenager at the counter flatly refused, explaining the theater's policy. "Sir, we don't provide refunds for poor life choices. You saw the poster. You knew what you were getting into." 56. A gardener at a botanical garden was asked by a visitor why a certain section of flowers was completely withered and dead. He leaned on his rake, sighed, and said, "They saw what's happening in the world and they just gave up. Can't say I blame them." 57. Trying to activate a new phone, a man was stuck in a verification loop. The call center employee, after exhausting all other options, suggested, "Have you tried speaking to the phone in a firm but encouraging tone? Sometimes they have performance anxiety." 58. A diner found a small piece of plastic in his salad. When he showed it to the waiter examined it closely and replied, "Congratulations, you found the prize. Unfortunately, the prize is just the piece of plastic." 59. A woman struggled with the self-checkout, triggering a loud alarm. An employee wandered over, patted the machine gently, and whispered, "Shh, it's okay. She didn't mean to scan twice." Then to the woman, "She's still healing from last week. Be gentle." 60. A guy asked the bookstore clerk if a certain novel had a happy ending. The clerk, surrounded by towering shelves and existential dread, responded, "Depends. Do you?" The guy left with a cookbook instead. Safer that way. 61. After a mechanic spent 30 minutes listening to a strange rattle in a car, he came back to the owner with a diagnosis. "The problem," he said gravely, "is that your car's ghost is unhappy. I can try to reason with it, but my exorcism rates are extra." 62. A man went to a tailor to get a suit altered. When he put it on, one sleeve was noticeably shorter than the other. The old tailor just nodded and instructed, "Now, all you have to do is just kind of lean. For the rest of your life, it gives you character." 63. When a customer at a cafe asked for a glass of water, the barista poured it and then slid it across the counter, saying, "Here you go. Sourced from ancient glaciers, filtered through volcanic rock, and then run through the tap in the back. Enjoy the journey." 64. An employee at an office supply store was asked where the staplers were. He got a distant look in his eyes and replied, "A stapler is just a tool that binds things that wish to be free. You'll find them in aisle 7, next to the paper clips of despair." 65. A hotel guest called the front desk to complain about the noise from the room next door. The employee on duty replied, "I understand your frustration, but we have a policy of letting passion run its course. We can offer you complimentary earplugs and our deepest sympathies." 66. In a costume store, a man asked if they sold realistic alien masks. The clerk opened a drawer, pulled out a mirror, and whispered, "The real mask is the one society forces you to wear." Technically unhelpful. Philosophically heavy. 67. When a woman tried to return a wilting houseplant, the garden center employee took the pot, held it up to his ear, and listened intently. He then turned to her with a solemn look and announced, "I'm sorry, but it's telling me it feels smothered by your expectations. It needs space." 68. A customer on a flight complained that his seat wouldn't recline. The flight attendant came over, tried the button, and then shrugged, saying, "Think of it as a philosophical upgrade. This seat encourages you to face life's challenges head-on, with excellent posture. It's a feature, not a bug." 69. At a fancy cheese shop, a customer pointed to a particularly pungent-smelling cheese and asked what it tasted like. The cheesemonger, a man with a magnificent mustache, closed his eyes and whispered, "It tastes like a barnyard argument between a goat and his own ghost. It's magnificent." 70. A guy trying to buy a new computer mouse asked the tech store employee which one had the best ergonomic design. The employee responded by holding up his own hand and saying, "The human hand is the only truly ergonomic design. Everything else is just a desperate attempt to replicate perfection. Maybe you should just use your finger." 71. After a city bus driver slammed on the brakes, sending everyone flying, a passenger yelled, "What was that for?" The driver, without turning around, simply shouted back, "I saw a squirrel who looked like he was having a bad day. We all have to look out for each other." 72. A hotel guest called the front desk to report a flickering light in his bathroom. The employee on the other end responded with eerie calmness, "Don't fight it. The room is just trying to communicate with you. If it blinks out SOS in Morse code, then you can call us back." 73. When a woman asked a butcher for the leanest cut of pork, he pointed to a picture of a pig on the wall. "See that one there? That's Kevin," he said. "Kevin did Pilates twice a week. That's as lean as you're gonna get. The rest of them have pretty much given up." 74. A man went to the library reference desk and asked if they had any books on paranoia. The librarian leaned forward, narrowed her eyes, and whispered, "They were right behind you, but they just left." 75. At a Christmas market, a shopper asked if the hand-carved Santa statue was made from real wood. The vendor, eyes twinkling, replied, "Yes, it was once a proud tree that now haunts malls and gift shops nationwide. It's still adjusting." The shopper bought it out of pity and fear. 76. After a 30-minute wait for a salad, a frustrated diner asked his waiter for an update. The waiter returned from the kitchen and explained, "The chef is currently in a deep meditative state to connect with the lettuce on a spiritual level. He says it's not ready to be eaten yet." 77. A woman complained to her internet provider that her Wi-Fi signal was weak in the backyard. The support agent thoughtfully suggested, "Have you tried describing the problem to your router in a calm, non-accusatory I statement? For instance, 'I feel disconnected when you don't reach the patio.'" 78. A tourist in a small town asked a shopkeeper what there was to do for fun. The shopkeeper leaned on the counter and said, "Mostly we watch the traffic light. It's been stuck on yellow for 6 years now. It's a whole drama. Is it about to give up? Is it a metaphor for our lives? We take bets." 79. While test driving a new electric car, the potential buyer commented on how quiet it was. The salesman nodded sagely. "Exactly," he said. "It's so quiet, you can actually hear your own inner monologue judging your driving. Most people can't handle that kind of intimacy." 80. A man at a furniture store was struggling to open a display cabinet. An employee came over and said, "Ah, yes. That one only opens when it feels a sense of genuine purpose from the person trying to open it." So far, no one has succeeded. 81. At a national park visitor center, a tourist asked the ranger where they could see some bears. The ranger pointed at a large map and said, "Well, they can be anywhere. The best way to find one is to walk around smelling strongly of bacon and poor decisions." 82. When a customer pointed out a typo on a restaurant's menu where soup was spelled soup, the manager explained, "That's not a typo. It's a minimalist culinary poem about the essence of liquid nourishment. It's supposed to make you think." 83. A woman brought her car to a mechanic because the check engine light was on. The mechanic looked at it for a moment, then took out a small piece of black electrical tape, stuck it over the light, and said, "Problem solved. That'll be $50. 84. A customer trying to buy a fish tank asked the pet store employee if it was difficult to maintain. The employee sighed and confessed, "The fish are easy. The hard part is resisting the urge to build a tiny underwater city and then playing God by introducing a giant plastic shark. It's a slippery slope." 85. At the airport security checkpoint, an agent pulled a man's bottle of water from his bag. The man protested, "But it's holy water." The TSA agent unscrewed the cap, took a small sip, and declared, "Nope, just regular water. Next." 86. A woman at a fast food counter asked for extra salt packets. The teenage employee stared at her for a long moment, then leaned in and whispered, "They're watching, you know, the salt police. I can give you 2, but if you ask for a third, I don't know you." 87. During a home security system installation, the customer asked the technician if the motion sensors were pet-friendly. The technician confidently replied, "Absolutely. Unless your pet is having an existential crisis and begins pacing frantically while questioning the nature of its reality. Then it might go off." 88. A man complained to a park ranger that the hiking trail map was confusing. The ranger took the map, folded it into a paper airplane, and launched it into the woods. "There," he said. "Now you must use your instincts. The trail will know if you are worthy." 89. At a department store perfume counter, a woman asked an employee what a particular fragrance smelled like. The employee sprayed it on a card, took a deep whiff, and announced, "It smells like a rich widow on a yacht," moments before she discovers her late husband's secret debts. It's complex. 90. A woman at a diner asked if the chef's choice was vegetarian. The waiter looked around, leaned closer, and whispered, "It's vegetarian in spirit." The ingredients once coexisted peacefully, until the great skillet uprising of lunch rush. She ordered fries instead. Probably wise. 91. A woman at a candle store asked why one particular candle was labeled Melancholy Thursday. The employee lit it, inhaled, and said, "It smells like spilled coffee, unsent texts, and that weird silence after a Zoom meeting ends. Very niche." She bought 3. Apparently, she has a lot of Thursdays. 92. When a man tried to use an expired coupon at a grocery store, the cashier shook her head. "I'm sorry, sir," she said with the gravity of a brain surgeon. "This coupon is passed on. We must let it go and remember the good times we had with it." 93. A guest at a quirky bed and breakfast asked the owner why the Wi-Fi password was a 40-character string of random letters and numbers. The owner smiled and replied, "We want our guests to talk to each other, or failing that, to contemplate the futility of modern existence." 94. A customer at a farmer's market asked a vendor if his vegetables were organic. The old farmer chewed on a piece of straw and said, "My plants listen exclusively to classical music and receive daily affirmations. If that's not organic, I don't know what is." 95. After a power outage at a concert, the lead singer told the crowd, "Don't worry, we have a backup plan." A stagehand then walked out and started making instrument sounds with his mouth. He was surprisingly good, but it wasn't exactly what the audience paid for. 96. A customer complaining about a slow computer was told by the IT guy, "Your computer isn't slow. It's just practicing mindfulness. It chooses to process each request deliberately and with intention. You should try it sometime." 97. At a historic battlefield, a tourist asked a guide dressed in period costume what the soldiers ate. The guide, in full character, responded, "Mostly, we ate disappointment, and occasionally a very tough piece of hardtack. The disappointment was easier to chew." 98. A woman bought a new smart toaster and called the helpline because it kept burning her toast. The support agent asked, "Have you tried reasoning with it?" Sometimes they get arrogant when they're new. You have to establish dominance early on. 99. When a customer at a cafe complained that his coffee tasted like dirt, the barista replied without hesitation, "That's because it's our new single-origin earthy terroir blend. We're trying to capture the authentic taste of the ground it came from. So, thank you for the compliment." 100. A man went to a government office to get a simple form stamped. The bureaucrat behind the counter looked at the form, then at the man, and said, "This form requires the stamp of approval, but approval is a journey, not a destination. Come back tomorrow." 101. A woman at an antique shop pointed to a dusty, creepy-looking doll and asked the owner, "Is this haunted?" The owner just smiled a slow, deliberate smile and replied, "For that price, we guarantee it's at least deeply troubled." All right, you've just heard my 101 exhibits for the case against common sense. But I know, for an absolute fact, that someone watching this right now is holding onto a story that tops everything you just heard. I'm not talking about just a dumb comment. I'm talking about the one. The story that made you stand there in complete silent disbelief, genuinely questioning the fabric of human intelligence. The one you still tell at parties where people think you're making it up. I want that story. Don't be shy and don't summarize it. Unleash it in the comments. I want the dialogue, the setting, the soul-crushing finale. Let's see who truly holds the crown for the most baffling encounter. If you're ready to join this collective therapy session, hit that like button and subscribe for more proof that we are not alone in this madness.